welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I greatly appreciate it. Well, we have a new gem that's here in our area, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. It's called the Legacy Theater, based in the Stony Creek section of Brantford. And Keelee Baisden Knudsen is my guest today, who is the actress, co-founder, and artistic director for the location. And Keelee, thanks for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for finding us and coming to be with us and talk about the theater. Why don't we tell the viewer about you first before we get into the theater? Tell us your backstory.
Sure. So I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and I went to New York University's Tisch School of the Arts for my undergraduate training. And so being a Texan and coming out to New York City was a lot for a Texan to handle, so I would escape. I would come out to Connecticut to kind of see suburbia and get some reprieve in nature, and I fell in love with it. And I thought, gosh, if I could ever live somewhere, this is, the epitome. You're so close to New York City, and there's also Boston nearby, but it's so beautiful, and the people are so intelligent and cultured, and I knew then that that's where I wanted to kind of settle. So I received my honors in acting, graduated #1 at NYU, and got a scholarship to the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama in Glasgow, Scotland. So I went up there and got my master's in acting. And when I returned, I went on a tour, and when I could finally kind of afford to put my, seeds down somewhere, I came to Connecticut. So I started teaching at Quinnipiac University, and I've been there since 2002. I'm still teaching this semester, some remote and some hybrid, and then also many other colleges in the area, and started directing and was the director of education with the Elm Shakespeare Company for many years, and their resident choreographer and an actress with them as well. And just, in 2011, reached out to my dear friend, Stephanie Stiefel-Williams, who is also a performer, and she and I worked for many years with the Cornerstone Productions, touring casinos and different venues doing musicals, and we partnered and began the Legacy Theater. So in 2011, we fundraised and got seed money to have a feasibility study to determine if we were to have a theater, in addition to the rich theater that's already out here, where should it be? Would people come? What's the right size and type? What kind of classes should we have? And Web Management out of New York City was the feasibility study company. And they determined that if it was in Madison or Brantford or Guilford and was 350 seats or less, that it would be a hit. So we had that in mind, and about that time is when the fabled Stony Creek Puppet House came up for sale. So we put our bid in to be able to have the right to purchase that through probate court, and we received the right to purchase it. We fundraised some more. We purchased the building in 2013, and since then have been working steadily to gain approvals, gain trust with the town, to work out our business plan, business model, and then ultimately with Wyeth Architects and Greg Weiss and Gardner Architects, have these amazing interior plans, keeping the exterior of the building as it was in the 20s when it was, I don't know if you know much about the history of this building, but it's incredible. Orson Welles had his Mercury players there in the 20s and 30s, and it was a silent picture house before then at the turn of the century, and so it has all of this fabulous history which worked perfectly with our already named Legacy Theater. And so we've since, created these beautiful designs, and the construction is going brilliantly. We're over halfway done with the interior. Even, during the pandemic, we've been able to continue building and continue fundraising, and are set to be totally complete on January 4th. And open for productions in whatever minimized size that needs to be during the pandemic until we are allowed to kind of open up further safely to do shows beginning in April, late April. So we're ready to go for 2021 and really excited.
I'm curious to know, going back to the very beginning, did you know growing up that you wanted to pursue an acting career?
Yes. You know, it's funny, this morning we just aired on our website at legacytheaterct.org. We have a face-to-face series that's interviews with theater makers and Broadway performers, etc. And Arvinder J. Robinson, who's done like 10 Broadway shows, was talking about his beginnings, and they were so different from the typical. I'm typical. I was like the 5-year-old on the front porch, just like singing and dancing and having my brother hold the flashlight. I've always wanted to perform and been performing. And some people just like fall into the business so, you know, easily, like Arvinder, who's got all these Broadway credits and never really thought of himself as an actor until he was an adult. But yes, I've always wanted to be in the performing arts.
And then from there, did you decide that you wanted to get into teaching and other aspects of the entertainment industry besides performing?
Yeah, so I had an amazing professor at New York University. I had many, but Damian Popkristov was this wonderful Bulgarian teacher, and he would open up, you know, dramatic theory and criticism, the decor text, and we'd, you know, look at Sophocles and all these wonderful ancient texts about theater, and it just ignited this spark in me. I want to be on the collegiate level. I want to be imparting this knowledge, making people, you know, realize what it is to be a human being throughout the ages and what we have in common. All of that was so inspiring to me. So from that moment on, I thought, someday I'm going to wear a blazer and be in front of college students. And so I have. I've been able to do that, and I love, especially as I get older, staying in touch with the, you know, uprising generations and seeing where they're coming from, you know, with all of the changing technology and entertainment, and, you know, making sure that they're in tune with theater and with the roots of entertainment. And it's very inspiring, and inspiring to tell them, you know, as a theater maker, what it is to create a theater company and to create, you know, an historic restoration of a theater, and begin seasons of theater throughout. So they're kind of going along the process with me too.
From there, from being in the university system and school system, did you continue to perform?
Oh yes, I've never stopped. Yes, in fact, you know, I kind of thought when I was pregnant with my first child, I thought, okay, you know, this has been a wonderful run as a singer, actor, dancer, and I kind of anticipated that it would wean out a bit, but I kept getting hired. So even though I'd be very great with child, I'd still do a tap dance number here and there. You know, in sequence. So it's been, I've been very fortunate in Connecticut. It's wonderful that way because there's so many talented people that also have very rich family lives and are able to kind of balance the two and have an understanding among the community of, you know, changing diaper while you're giving choreography. You know, with Shakespeare, that happened many times. I have several children, so that was kind of the par for the course. But you know, I've been very fortunate, you know, to be able to have a community here that would continue to hire me to perform, as well as direct and other things.
Did all of that move you into thinking about opening up a theater yourself, or performing arts location?
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's kind of a natural progression if you think about it. You know, you start out as an actor, singer, dancer. You know, I was playing the bassoon in the Staten Island Symphony Orchestra. I was always in the performing arts. And as such, every once in a while I would be asked to be in a leadership position, right? Here, be the dance captain, or will you choreograph this piece? Or, you know, with this educational piece, will you be the director of, you know, these Shakespeare scenes? And as it evolved, and especially on the collegiate level, as I was given more and more responsibility to direct, and then went on to receive awards for such, it was really, it just became a natural progression of, these are the values that I hold as a director. This is what I want to impart. This is what I want the audience experience to be. This is the type of venue that I would, you know, like to provide for the community. These are the types of shows that I think would be worthy to show and to inspire and uplift and educate. And so to kind of evolve into artistic director was a very natural progression, but one that I find so rewarding, and that each facet of my personality and experiences plays a vital role in being the artistic director.
I was just going to ask you, I hear that title often. I know your title is also co-founder. What does an artistic director do?
An artistic director typically in a theater is over all of the creative aspects. So even if you don't directly direct a show, you will be in charge of hiring the team, the creative team that would put on the show. Oftentimes the artistic director does direct the show as well. So you're casting, but you're also working with, a choreographer if it's a musical, or a music director. You're picking the season along with the board of trustees or your committees. So really all of the creative aspects. Because we're so small and have started out so small, we're growing, I've also kind of worn the hat of executive director. So that's, the managing director role, which would be more over the money and over the, budgeting for out each production and the overall season. I've had, my hands very much in that as well.
And your co-founder, how did you find each other to be able to have a synergy between yourselves to decide that you wanted to do this together?
So in 2002, I was invited by a choreographer from a different project to join his theater company. That was Carl Gasteyer, and it was Cornerstone Productions. I went to his studio on the first day, and he played a recording for me of an original song that was going to be in the upcoming production, and it was amazing. The singer was unbelievable, and I thought, I'm not worthy. I can't be part of this company. So amazing. That was Stephanie. That was Stephanie's voice. So when I met her in the rehearsal studio, I was already in awe. Performed with her for many years, scared to death. And just have always admired her. I've been her #1 fan for so long. And so, of course, the deep friendship just grew from that, and we've been very dear friends for many years now. And so, when I wanted to begin a theater company, I asked her what she thought of it, and we, came up with the vision together. And it's been a total partnership from the very beginning. And she still serves as a chair of the board of trustees, and as the co-founder, is often seen in our productions. She's extraordinarily talented, very smart. She was a former Miss Connecticut, and she was also an attorney. So she's one of a kind.
The theater itself, what made you decide that, granted feasibility study, you live locally, it's a local theater. Tell me about why you chose it.
Oh, thank you for asking. So you've been to Stony Creek,
yes.
Right? It's magical. It's absolutely magical. There's the Thimble Islands. There's all of the amazing history, the quarry that had the base of the Statue of Liberty, and et cetera. The Stony Creek Museum, the Thimble Island cruises. It's this little slice of Americana that is preserved. And to have a theater right in the midst of that community is amazing. But not only that, the roots of the theater are mind-blowing when you think about the types of people that walked through those doors, that played on the floors there. It's really inspiring. And even, the more recent history of the Stony Creek Puppet House, you had Jimmy Weil with these amazing, nearly life-size puppets doing the Sicilian puppetry as one of, very few in the entire nation that would still do this very European tradition right here in the States. So it's got this amazing history as a venue itself. The location is absolutely unbeatable as the most quaint and amazing village in Stony Creek. And part of our mission has certainly developed into how do we maintain its quaintness, and not just come in and from Broadway all of a sudden, but to make sure that we respect the just Americana of that village, the peacefulness that residents feel when they're there. It is a very, very well kept secret, and although we hope to be popular, we're only 127 seats, and we hope not to stress that vein of it in any way.
Okay, we're going to take a moment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
My love, she keeps me warm. 100% best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind, love is patient.
Welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. We're talking about a very special gem called the Legacy Theater, based in Brantford, and our guest is Keelee Baisden Knudsen, who continues to be my guest with us today. And Keelee, thanks so much again for staying. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Why don't we continue on? Tell me about the building and the renovation. How is it going?
It's going splendidly. We've had this kind of fortunate predicament in that the pandemic is ongoing.
Yes.
So because we're building literally the theater, we're able to take a step back and say, okay, what kind of system are we going to put in that is air cleansing as we go? What are the very best measures that we can use to make sure that our audiences and our staff and our actors are as safe as possible? So, we're within the building timeline. We've been able to incorporate these very helpful, safe measures as we go along. And in addition, with our own business plan, being able to do that as well. How are we going to communicate with the audiences? How are we going to collect tickets? How are we going to do our social distance seating for whatever capacity we're allowed to have? Entrances, exits of the building, all of these things. And of course our season. What season are we picking that can best reflect not only what are the safest shows to do at this time. A chorus line was on the bill until COVID, and now we have to push that forward into the future. But also, Black Lives Matter and what's happening socially, politically. How are we going to respond best to the environment that America sees itself in right now?
What is the Legacy Theater all about? What is it that you present there?
Our catchphrase from the beginning, when we created our mission statement back in 2011, was to uplift and inspire. And there are so many wonderful theaters and theatrical productions that we can choose from that do just that. We want the audience to be enlightened, to grow, to commune together emotionally and have a common experience regardless of where they're from or how they relate politically, socially. So we're really about creating that community through the work that we do. We also have classes that we'll be offering for all ages and all levels. And we also have a theater troupe that we devised a few years ago called the Wheel Life Theater Troupe. It's for those who ambulate with crutches or use wheelchairs. And we've been acting together at the International Festival of Arts and Ideas and the Guilford Performing Arts Festival. And when we created the architectural plans for the theater, it was very important to us to get this building as accessible as possible. So because of that, we're one of few theaters that have a wheelchair lift up to the tech booth and then have a tech booth that can accommodate a wheelchair in there. Our stage is accessible from the lobby. We have, of course, the accessible dressing rooms and restrooms, which most theaters have. But we're very proud of that, and that's very much a part of who we are.
Tell me about the town. How did they think about or accept you as you decided to pursue making this a theater?
Well, it has been an arc. It's been a journey. I came in very naively and as an outsider to the community. Even Creekers in Stony Creek can be outsiders to their own community. It's an amazing and wonderful and multifaceted community of people. And you've got, the people that have been the quarry miners for centuries, that their lineage is still there in Stony Creek, and you have the new move-ins from New York, and you've got quite a diversity in the population, and they're very protective of their beautiful, perfect lifestyle they have there. It's just such a wonderful place. So obviously having an outsider come in and say, we're going to take over the puppet house and we're going to do what we want to do in this theater that's in your neighborhood, was frightening to some. And I'm so grateful for how it has all kind of panned out. Even the moments where I thought, oh no, are we ever going to be well received here? I feel like because of all that we had to work out with the town, and I mean this took years, we were able to come up with a business plan that was worked on from both sides, not just from what we'd like to have in Stony Creek, but those that were the most concerned about it, the closest neighbors, the ones that were like, oh, when we had a rock house here, when it was the puppet house and there were bands coming and then people would do terrible things in the neighborhood, how do we protect our neighborhood against such things? So we're not going to be a rental house. We're going to produce our own work. We'll have invited artists certainly in our Broadway series, but everything's very much going to have the legacy stamp on it. And we're working very hard to make sure that we don't go over 150 days of operation, that within that there are certain days that we're not open after a certain hour. We've worked out parking plans. We're going to have a shuttle service that goes from commuter lot 56 down to the theater, drop off and pick up afterwards, so we don't have congestion, because it's hard to park in the creek. It's
Very
hardly
much
any
so.
parking. And a parking garage didn't come with the theater, unfortunately. So even though it's been there since the early 1900s and on, it's always been a congestion issue, so we don't want to create more of a problem there. So it's been a long road, but it's been a really fruitful one, and I'm very grateful for all of it, because we can open the theater knowing that we've done our due diligence, that we've done, put our best foot forward with the neighbors, and we've done all that we can to work together to create solutions to very real concerns that they had.
And before I forget, why don't you take a moment and take us back into history? What is that building all about, and what happened to it in the very beginning? How was it created?
It has always been a community gathering place, even the lot. So before the theater as it is now was there was a church. And back in the late 1800s, 1866, it was, a gathering place. And then it burned down. And the Howds, H-O-W-D, and they're still there, the Howds family is still there, they built this theater and they purchased the property, and they had a silent picture house. So you'd have the pianist and you'd have the movie playing, and people would come and see movies there. One of the very first silent picture houses in this area. And then there was a community group, theater players called the Parish Players, that were at a neighboring church that were getting very popular and very good. And so they kind of moved in and rented the facility and then fundraised. It's so funny how history repeats itself. But I find these articles from the 20s where they're like fundraising to build the theater out. But they did, and they were able to build the back part of the theater and create the stage space and have some theater seats and whatever technology was available, and create plays. Well, it became, it was a hot spot. Back in those times, we don't realize it, but Stony Creek was a hot spot. There was a trolley going through, we had the boats coming in, New Yorkers, Boston, people would come from all over. There were 5 hotels in Stony Creek. They would come from all over to, have this entertainment and go to the Thimble Islands and see some theater and then, carry on with their lives. And so there's so much history. And so that's why you have people like Orson Welles, and you had Joseph Cotton, and you have William Gillette, all these kind of, famous Connecticut names coming into the theater to do work. And pre-Broadway pieces were performed there. Too Much Johnson was performed there. Katharine Hepburn, it's fabled to have been in the audience to have seen Joseph Cotton's performance, and that's why the Philadelphia story was cast with him in it. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. So the history then goes on to the 60s, where the Weil family purchased it. We have the Stony Creek Puppet House, where these Sicilian puppets then perform and do these very kind of, blue-collar, violent pieces. And then it became more of a rental facility, and then it started to kind of go into demise, and either was going to be, repurposed, mowed over, or bought by a theater and continue with its heritage. So we're so grateful to have been able to do that.
It seemed to be empty for a while. Was it empty for a while?
Yes, it was, and for code reasons and for good reasons. it kind of became unsafe. So we had to go through and just, we've entirely redone the interior of it to harken back to its days of old, when it was a performance facility.
Before I forget, the viewer is listening to you right now. tell them what you'd like them to know about the property itself, how they should come and see you.
Oh, well, we would love people to come and see us. You can reach out to us at www.legacytheaterct.org, and that's theater with an R-E. And you can email me personally. I'm Keelee, Keely, at legacytheaterct.org. I'd love to give you a hard hat tour. We're supposed to open or have it completed in January 4th. So April 16th is going to be our grand opening. We're having television star from Glee and also Broadway star Telly Leung, who was Aladdin himself on Broadway and many others. He's going to be performing on the stage on April 16th. So however socially distanced we have to do that, and live streamed we'll have to do it, we will. And then April 28th is our first show, and we reveal our season on November 14th. November 14th is our virtual gala. We're having at least 6 major Broadway performers, as part of our gala. We're also going to highlight the Wheel Life Theater Troupe, tell you a bit about our story, give you a tour of the theater as it is, and then announce our season, which is chock full. We have filled those 150 days beautifully with all kinds of exciting professional productions that will be aired.
When you say, we have just about a minute left, when you say 150 days, is it a theater time frame? Is it summer, winter, fall?
April 28th is our first show, and we close up that show the end of September, and then we have 2 weeks of A Christmas Carol in December.
Okay.
Yes, and classes throughout that time, and 2 weeks of summer intensives for youth, Broadway Spotlight Series, and the Wheel Life Theater Troupe, as well as classes for all ages and all levels.
Wonderful. Well, it's been wonderful having you.
Thank you for
Any
having me.
closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
Please come to our online gala. It's November 14th. You can go to our website to get tickets. They'll go on sale next week. You can start at $35, which is a steal, to view, or you can view our online auction for free and bid on exciting items as well. So thank you for having me, and please join us for the gala.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for being here. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. You've been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We'll see you next time.